a white professor suddenly discovered that the black janitor in the lab was secretly flipping through his medical textbook. He then had a sudden idea. To test this man's curiosity, he pointed to a device nearby and asked him what it was. To his great surprise, the janitor answered correctly without hesitation. The professor then observed his hands, and after careful examination, he believed he had discovered a person with exceptional talent. He handed him a pair of laboratory forceps to hold a test tube. The janitor accomplished it effortlessly,
deeply astonishing the professor.
He then decided to increase the difficulty by asking him to do it with his left hand. The janitor still performed flawlessly, holding the cork between his fingers and rotating his wrist to seal the bottle. His dexterity deeply impressed the professor, who realized that even his university students couldn't do this. The next day, this janitor named Thomas was promoted to lab assistant. However, when Thomas's wife heard the news, she showed no joy. The job seemed prestigious, but the salary was only $12 per week, far less than what he earned as a carpenter, where his pay was 3 times higher. Yet Thomas seemed
tout valut the future mort, then the immediate opportunity. In reality,
his entry into the lab was no coincidence. Since childhood, he had dreamed of working in the medical field. After graduating from high school, he worked as a carpenter for 7 years,
saving money, in the hope of one day
studying medicine. One day, while passing by an old bank, he noticed the door was locked. He knocked loudly to find out what was happening, but the response broke his heart. The bank had gone bankrupt, and his savings of 7 years vanished in an instant. At that moment, he lost all motivation to move forward.
Until a friend
told him about a janitor position at the medical school. The salary wasn't high, but it brought him closer to his dream. Even if it meant cleaning up messes, he was willing to do it. Today, Thomas could finally devote himself fully to his studies. A few months later, the opportunity finally arrived. He had the chance to demonstrate his skills. During an experiment on traumatic shock,
the professor drew a black line
on the belly of an anesthetized dog and asked Thomas to cut along that line.
Thomas obeyed without hesitation,
quickly and precisely opening the abdomen. The blood pressure dropped on the pressure gauge. The professor explained that the traditional method was to constrict the blood vessels, but his research showed this wasn't the most effective approach. He decided to try dilating the vessels and transfusing blood. Thomas followed the instructions, but the pressure continued to drop. Everything seemed to indicate that the professor's research was failing until miraculously, the mercury column began to rise.